So the last few weeks, we've been going through humans and animals, and now we're moving on to plants, in this week's topic. So same as always, guys, if you've got any questions or anything you want to say, feel free to do so, but just put your hand up on Zoom for me with the little hand icon. That then makes your screen pop up on my screen while I'm showing the presentation, and then I can call out your name. Alrighty, so plants. Now, all plants do something very special that even humans and animals don't do it, and that's making their own food. Does anyone know what the process of plants making their own food, what that process is called?
I know, sir.
Hold on, put your hand up on Zoom for me, please. Ritishan, yes.
It's called photosynthesis, sir.
Exactly. Photosynthesis. So, here we go. The process of making their own food in plants, as Ritishan said, was photosynthesis. Now, the word photosynthesis is split into two things. One is photo and the other one is synthesis. Photo means light. Synthesis refers to the building or putting together. So it's the use of light to create something, and that creation in this case is food for the plant to grow. Now, plants capture the energy from sunlight, right? And the way they store it in themselves is through sugars and starch. These products are then used to actually feed the plant itself. Now, within plants, you've got many different parts, right? So you've got the leaves, you've got the stems, but then you've also got things like roots, flowers, fruits, and seeds. Now, of these things, yes, I see your hand up, Sarwin. Do you have a question?
There's also stems and roots, sir. In the
Absolutely.
parts of plants.
Definitely. Exactly right. So there's all these different parts of a plant, but only very specific areas can create their food. And that's the green parts of the plant. So things like leaves. The roots, flowers, fruits, those have different functions in the plant. They don't create food. Now, for photosynthesis to take place, there's 4 key elements. And one of the most important of those is a chemical called chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll from a visual point is the chemical that creates the green color or the green pigment that's found in the leaves. Now, the 4 components, including chlorophyll, are light, water, carbon dioxide, and chlorophyll. So you can see here down the bottom, those 4 elements, when combined together, create the starch and the sugars along with oxygen, right? So the starch and the sugars for the plant to grow and develop, and then oxygen, which of course is produced into the environment, into the world to help all the humans and animals live, right? Now, we mentioned just over here, there's many different parts of a plant, right? And aside from the leaves and the green areas where photosynthesis is done, the flowers also play a crucial part in the plant's life. Does anyone know what the main role of flowers is?
Making.
Hold on. Whoever that is, just put your hand up for me. Cool. Ritishan, sorry, because you answered the last one, I might actually give Satvika a go. I do see her hand up as well. I'll come back to you though if there's anything you want to add. Satvika, yes?
The main thing is the flower making a fruit.
To create, sorry, go again for me.
Creating a fruit.
To create fruit? Yeah. It can definitely turn into fruits as well, definitely. Is there anything else that flowers are crucial for? Sorry, Sashwin, yes, I see your hand up.
The same thing, sir.
You were going to say fruit as well?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Other
I just can't hear you, Sashwin. If you want to bring the mic a little bit closer to you.
vegetables and other fruits.
Okay, yeah. Dinishan, I do see your hand up, but I'm thinking maybe that was from before. Do you have anything
I
to
want
add,
to
mate?
answer, sir.
Yes.
It also can produce seed.
Seeds? Yeah,
Yes.
yep. Okay, yep, they're definitely all involved together. The flowers can turn into fruit, which in turn have seeds. Ritishan, I see your hand up again. Yes. There's one. Oh, yep, go for it.
And the flowers also can give us honey.
Yeah, kind of. You're on the right
And-
track. There's nectar
and-
in some of the flowers. Absolutely.
I know one more, sir.
Yep.
As everyone said, it can produce fruit to make new plants.
Okay. So you're getting closer there, talking about, producing something to then create a new plant. Purana, yes? Do you have something to say?
It's produce oxygen.
Yep. So the plants do. So there's one thing, guys, that flowers in particular, as part of the plant, does, and that's to assist with reproduction. Okay, so to help one plant become more. That's the primary goal of flowers. So everything you guys said is absolutely true. They can turn into fruit, which then turns into seeds. They're definitely involved, in terms of the plant, in terms of creating oxygen and producing that as well. But flowers as a key component exist to help in reproduction of plants. Now, flowers themselves can come in various different shapes, sizes, and colors, but all flowers have specific parts that create what they are. Now, okay, so in the flowers, right? As I was saying, there's their most crucial role in a plant is to aid in reproduction. Now, given that is its crucial role, there's both male and female organs within the flower to facilitate reproduction. Now, does anyone know which two types of cells are combined to produce a new plant? Cool. Now, they're both called the ova, which is made and stored in the ovary. And then you've got the pollen grains, which are made and released from the anthers. So that's your male and the female organs within the flower. So if you have a look on the diagram over here on the right, you can see the anther, which is these ones here, the yellow sections. So that's where all of the pollen grains are stored. And you can see what pollen grains look like just over here. And then you've also got the ovary, which is down here in the flower, which stores the ova, which looks like that. Now, plant reproduction can only happen when the pollen and the ova, these two things, are brought together and fused. The fusion of those two cells is called fertilization. And that's what initiates the reproductive process in plants for them to be able to multiply. Now, when fertilization occurs, that's when we see seeds grow and develop and be produced, Now, when the seed then grows and develops, that becomes a plant. So you've got the ova and the pollen grains, they fuse together, they become a seed. The seed then grows and becomes the plant. Now, for this process to take place, there's something called pollination. That refers to when pollen from the anthers, so we were talking about the yellow parts there, when the pollen from those move to the stigma, that's referred to as pollination. Now, we were just speaking a slide or two below about how a flower's shape, size, color, they can all vary, right? And each of those have specifically adapted to their environment to increase their chance of success in reproduction and and growing in the environment that they live. Now, in a plant's life cycle, there's a few key stages. One is insect pollination, the other is seed dispersal, and the third is seed germination. Before I go into these sections, yes, Ritishan, you have a question? You missed a little bit?
Sir,
Okay, and did you...
at the beginning of this one.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you for letting me know, Sarwin and Ritishan. Thank you. Okay. I'll get you guys to pop back on mute, and then I'll run through this slide again, okay? So, just before this one, we were talking about how the main purpose of flowers is to aid in reproduction. Now, in order for reproduction to occur, there's both male and female organs within the flower. There's two types of cells that are combined from these male and female organs to then produce or start the process of producing new plants. From the female side, it's the ova, which is made and stored in the ovary. And from the male side, it's pollen grains, which are made and released from the anthers. So if you have a look at this diagram on the right, you can see the anthers here, which are these yellow sections. They make and release the pollen grains, which are just down the bottom here. And then you've got the ovary at the base of the flower, which makes and stores the ova, which is the female sex cell over here. The plant reproduction can only happen when these two sex cells are brought together and fuse. That process of fusion is called fertilization. The result of that fertilization is the creation of a seed, which can then grow and develop into a new plant. Now, the process of moving the pollen that the anthers create, right, and moving them into the stigma, that process is referred to as pollination. Now, in the world, there's very many different shapes, sizes, colors of flowers. They have all very specifically adapted to the environments that they live in with the specific reason to increase their chance of success in reproduction. In a plant's life cycle, there's a few key elements, or few key stages, I should say. These include insect pollination, seed dispersal, and seed germination. We'll go in through each of these ones to explain what they actually are. Insect pollination. Some plants in the world basically depend on insects to carry the pollen that's produced from their anthers and move them across to other flowers' stigmas, right? Or even within their own flower, it relies on the insect to move the pollen off the anther and into the stigma. In these scenarios where insects play a vital role in this movement, the flowers are adapted very specifically to be more colorful, to be larger in nature, and to have a stronger scent, right? So all of those things are designed to attract insects inside the flower, which then creates the movement of the pollen both within the flower into its own stigma and across different flowers into other stigmas. nectary, which Ritishan was referring to a little bit earlier in the class, may also be found at the base of some flowers. Nectary is basically, sorry guys, a nectary is basically the section at the base of the flower where the nectar that insects can feed on lies, right? So this is essentially a sugary liquid that, again, along with the attractiveness of the flower through its color and its scent, the sugary liquid which insects love to feed on also creates that attraction. Now, as insects travel to the nectar, they push their way in through the flower. So through all these sections here, they're traveling down. And as they're doing that, they brush past these anthers, which then creates movement and pushes out the pollen. And as they then move around the flower or exit the flower, the stigma is over here. So the pollen falls back into the stigma and goes all the way down where the ovary would sit to then create that fusion and start the process. Now, aside from the insects creating shaking movements within the flower that then cause the fusion process, some pollen grains can also stick to the insect's own hair and legs. As they fly off, right, they may be able to take the pollen from flower A and move it to flower B, which again creates that process of reproduction or initiates the process of reproduction because the pollen from the anther is going into a stigma, just a different stigma. Now, some insects, like bees, collect pollen for food. As they do this, again, unintentionally, pollination can occur because they're creating the movement of pollen from one to another. Now, there's a few flowers that are very insect pollinated and insect driven for the pollination. These include the cotton flowers, sunflowers, and hibiscus. So you can see here, that's the cotton, sunflower, and hibiscus. So you can see here that they have some of the characteristics that we spoke about, where they're quite brightly colored, they're larger in size than a lot of the other flowers, and if you do smell them, some of them would have an attractive scent, right? Now, before I move on to seed dispersal, does anyone have any questions on insect pollination and how that process works or anything like that? Just pop your hand up on Zoom if you do. Sarwin, yes? Just bring the mic up a little bit closer for me, Sarwin. I don't hear you.
I can't understand the progress of the flower, sir.
The progress of the flower?
Yes, sir.
So how it goes, how it becomes a new one, is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, so we haven't actually reached that stage yet. This is just the very beginning of the life cycle of the flower where we're talking about, and I'll just go back here. So this section is purely talking about the fertilization, right? So how the pollen grains and the ova come together. That generally occurs through the process of pollination and insects who assist in that process. So some insects, they just travel into the flowers. As they travel, the flower shakes and the pollen then moves from the anthers here into the stigma. When it goes into the stigma, it travels all the way down to the ovary, which is down at the bottom, right? And that creates the initial fertilization. On the other hand, you've also got insects where the pollen sticks to their hairs and the legs. And then as they travel around to different flowers or even within the same flower, they create the transport of the pollen around. And And then, those are the two basic things. So we're still at the very start of the life cycle. So we're just talking about here where the male and the female sex cells come together and how that's happening. In the next few slides, we'll go through how the fertilization process then develops and actually builds out a new plant. Does that kind of answer your question? Do you have any other ones for that one? Do you have a follow-up for me?
No, sir. It's okay. I can understand.
You do? You sure?
Clear. Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay, cool. Satvika?
Sir, can you repeat it again because I go to the bathroom?
That's okay. Yeah. So I was just talking about how in this part of the presentation, we're just looking into how the fertilization takes place. So how the pollen from the anthers, which is the male sex cell, how that combines with the ova, which is the female sex cell, to initiate the process of creating new plants. Right? So the movement from the anthers into the stigma, which then flows down into the ovaries to initiate fertilization. Anybody else have any questions?
Nothing, sir.
Okay, perfect.
No, sir.
Now, thank you guys. Okay, so seed dispersal. Once the flower is pollinated, so the ova is fertilized, the pollen and the ova are fused together, seeds develop inside the ovary, right at the bottom of the flower. When the seeds are then taken away, scattered and spread out from the initial parent plant, that is called seed dispersal. Now, like all living things, humans, animals, whatever it might be, plants also compete for resources to help them grow and develop. If the plant seeds are not dispersed away from the parent plant, it will mean that all of the seeds are competing for the same resources, so the same water, the same light, and that doesn't create for a healthy environment because the parent plant, which is already developed and already has a root system in place, will of course beat out the newly developed seeds, right? Because they don't have the capabilities around them to compete and win for the same resources, which is why seed dispersal is crucial to help the specific species thrive. Now, there's 4 key methods of seed dispersal. There's the wind, water, animals, and something called exploding fruit. Wind dispersal. Wind can carry seeds far away from the parent plant. So when seeds are blown away to places, they can either be put into an environment where they can germinate and have the resources around them to survive. But because the wind creates such a randomized push away, we find that in many circumstances, the seeds move to areas where they can't survive. But for those that do land in fertile locations, they end up thriving and growing into new plants. Water dispersal is the other method, where through the use of seas and rivers, seeds are transported away from the parent plants to new areas. For the water dispersal to take place, the seeds that are being transported need to have a fair amount of air-filled spaces, right? Because that's what makes them buoyant to then float on top of the water to successfully travel from one location to the other. If they are too dense and they sink right to the bottom of the river or the seabed, they won't move and therefore the dispersal won't take place. So for wind dispersal to occur, as you can imagine, the seeds have to be quite a lightweight material, a lightweight object. So things like dandelions or thistles, they have seeds that can be transported through the wind. Coconuts are the example of something that can be transported over water, because I'm sure, as you guys know, if you cut the coconut in half and you break it open, you'll see that there's actually a lot of air and not much dense material in the middle. Because of that, it allows the coconut to float in the water and be transported from one location to another. Animals can also transport seeds. So it's specifically birds, right? They can carry them from one flower or tree to another. Hooked, spiky, or sticky seeds can basically get stuck on to certain animals or the beaks of birds, and again, be transported from one area to another. Now, other seeds that are transported through animals are actually within certain berries and fruits that the animals consume. The seeds themselves aren't digested by the animal and therefore are passed through in the animal's waste, in their droppings. Now, the droppings themselves are a good source of nutrients for developing seedlings, right? Because they're byproducts of the food that the animal was actually eating. So often when you see seeds that are deposited in an animal's waste, they tend to thrive and actually grow, becoming plants themselves. The last method is through exploding fruit. Now, some fruits are adapted to certain environments in such a way that they are so dry and tend to explode through the twist or burst of the fruit itself. What happens when that occurs is, of course, the force of that burst throws the seed away from the initial parent plant and puts it around the environment to help increase their chance of survival. Again, why does that happen? Because the parent plant and the seedlings are not competing for the same resources. If they're split apart a little bit further, they've got their own space and access to own resources. So an example of the seeds that can be transported by animals are things like oranges. And then for the exploding fruit, there's some very unique plants. One is the cowpea, and then you've also got the sandbox tree, right? Which has these fruits here. Before I move on to germination, again, just going to put it out to you guys. If anybody's got any questions in terms of seed dispersal.
I think so.
Cool, perfect. Thank you, guys. All right. So the next part, just your hand up for me if anyone wants to say something. I did hear someone's voice. I just don't know who it was. Cyrene, yes?
I didn't understand what that one said.
Which one? You want to give me a specific?
About the water disposal, sir.
Water dispersal. Okay. So seed dispersal overall, right, as a general process, is essentially the movement of seeds from the parent plant away to a new location, right? And do you understand, Cyrene, why that process takes place?
Sir?
Did you understand why seed dispersal as a process takes place?
No, sir. That is what I do understand.
Okay. So the seed dispersal, I might put it out to the class. Does anyone want to answer why seed dispersal takes place? Ritishan?
Yes, sir.
It's because if the parent plant and if the parent plant and the small plant were in the same place,
and the parent plant consumes all the minerals and water from the soil, but the seedlings can't, because the parent plants consume all of them, but the seedlings couldn't. So they send away the seeds so they could stay in a different place, and they can grow very well with the with water, with everything, minerals and everything.
Exactly right. So the seed dispersal takes place, as you said, to try and increase the chance of survival for the seeds themselves, so they're not competing with the parent plant. So for the seed dispersal, which is the movement of seeds to take place, it can occur in one of four ways, which is the wind, water, animals, or exploding fruit. So to your question, Sarwin, about water, it refers to the process of certain seeds getting moved from one location to another over the rivers or seas or lakes, anything like that, which is a body of water, right? And the successful transport over water happens when the seeds have air-filled spaces inside them, which allows them to be a floating item, right? If there's no air within the seed, it will sink to the bottom, and therefore the water's not going to do anything for the seed. It'll be stuck at the bottom of the bed, right? So if it's an air-filled seed like a coconut, for example, it can then float on the water from one location to another. Hope that made sense for you. Is that all good?
Sir, I understand. Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Sashwin, I see your hand up.
Yes, sir. I'm telling for the example, sir. Like watermelon, if you throw a watermelon in the deep sea, it will sink. It doesn't float because it doesn't have that much air in it, so it sinks.
Yeah.
If you put anything, if the watermelon doesn't has if the watermelon has air in it, it can float in water.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly right. Spot on, Sashwin. All right. So now we go on to seed germination. Sashwin, I still see your hands up. I don't know if you want to still say something or if it's on accident. Okay, perfect. Now, we've talked about, guys, how the two sex cells combine, right, to fertilize, to fertilize and pollinate. We've then talked about how seeds can move from one location away from the parent plant to another to give them the best chance of survival. Now we talk about how the seed turns into a seedling. And that process is referred to as germination. When the plants produce a seed, right, in general, it is referred to as a dormant seed because the seeds themselves are not growing, right? Once the germination takes place and is initiated, that's when the seed becomes active and begins to start growing. The seed or the embryo within the seed uses food that's stored within it to expand its root, shoot from the base and create leaves to then form what we refer to as a seedling. Now, we discussed this right at the very beginning, which is that light is a crucial factor in plants creating plants undergoing photosynthesis to produce food. Seeds themselves can't produce food. They have them stored inside when they're developed from the parent plant. Now, the food that's stored within a seed is dry, right? It can't move around. It's stuck. What's required for the germination process to take place is water. With water, the solid food becomes a solution, which then travels, rather than being stuck, down to the embryo and moves it from being dormant, which is stuck, to becoming an active process. Now, as a general statement, temperature, can have an impact on these life processes. So low temperatures tend to slow down the growth of seedlings, while high temperatures tend to speed up this growth. Now, you can see here, guys, this basically covers all of the points we've just discussed, right? So you have germination, which is the very beginning. The last slide that I just went through there, which is where the seed itself becomes a seedling and starts to produce the root, the shoots, and the leaves. As the seedling grows and develops using the resources around it, it starts to flower, right? You then have pollination taking place through the animals, the movement of the anthers into the stigma, which then fuses the male and the female sex cells into one. You've then got, once those processes take place, the production of seeds. The seeds are then dispersed through the 4 methods we spoke about. And then once they're dispersed, goes back into germination using the resources around it. How does that sound to everybody? Any questions from anyone?
No, sir.
Nope.
No,
Cool.
sir.
Easy. Let me just go around the Zoom
No
call
questions,
here.
sir.
We've had a few quiet people in the call today. Prinsika, Rahul, Puvarna, Lokapriya. You guys understood everything that was in there? Any questions? Feel free to ask.
No, sir.
No?
No,
Okay, good.
No, sir.
Awesome. So everyone's going to get a 10 out of 10 on the Kahoot then after this one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, cool. Let me move across and I'll get you guys the Kahoot code. So if everyone wants to log in for me into Kahoot.
Are we going
Oh,
to start?
actually, sorry. My mistake, guys. Sorry. Just before we start logging into Kahoot, there's just a small homework task. Just a very quick activity. I'll put this into our WhatsApp group, the slide deck, at the end of the class. So if you could guys just do me a favor, and if you can complete this one for me over the week, we can then just make sure we go through the answers at the start of the next lesson and move on. Okay?
Yes, sir. I will done and send this to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Alrighty. So now, Kahoot. Let me start this one up for you guys. And I'll give you the code in just a sec. That is the code. All right. Looks like everyone has joined. So I'm going to start the Kahoot. Okay. Most people got that one right. Well done. Sarwin and Puvarna both with the quickest answers. All right. Ooh, okay. Got half of you guys there. So remember, only the leaves, so the green areas of the plant are the ones that can produce food and go through the process of photosynthesis. The roots, the flowers, they don't produce their own food. Ooh, there we go. There was a bit of a change in the leaderboard. All right. All right, there we go. Most of you got that one. Ova and pollen grains, exactly right. Ooh, Sashin taking the lead. All right. Oh, only one person got that one. It was a trick question. You guys got to read the question. So this one said the shape, size, and color were designed to reduce the chance of success. That's wrong. They're all designed to increase the chance of success. Rahul's the only one who got that one right. Well done, mate. Nice. Most of you got that one. Loka taking the lead. Germination, nice. Most of you guys got that one. Oh, Ritishan taking the lead. Is he going to win 2 weeks in a row? 2 more questions to go. Nice. Most of you got that one. Sashwin coming in second place. Is he going to be able to take Ritishan off the leaderboard? Last question. Nice. All right. Majority got that one. Let's see. What's the leaderboard like? Loka, well done. Third place. Darwin coming in second place. And then first place was Ritishan. Well done, mate. Second week in a row. Won that one. Sarwin, second place, second week in a row as well. Nicely done. Nicely done. Well done to everybody. All right. And that takes us to the end of the class, guys. Did anyone want to say anything else before we close up for the evening? Nope. I'll take silence as good. Easy. No dramas, guys. Well, thanks for joining today. That takes us to the end. So I'll let you enjoy the rest of your night. I'll as always, I'll pop the slide deck back on our WhatsApp chat. And if you guys can get that homework piece done for me as well, and just put it into the WhatsApp whenever you get a chance before the next class. No worries. Thank you.
think so.
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Cool. That's okay.
Thank you,
See you
sir.
guys.
Have a good
Bye.
day. Thanks for teaching.
See you guys.
Bye,
You
Auntie.
too.
Have a good day.